Now,
on News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
Vince Coglianese.
Good afternoon to you. 5:06 now, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up this hour from the RNC, Tommy Pigott will be with us. We'll talk to him about Joe Biden's trip to visit with auto workers for 87 seconds today. An 87-second speech to the auto workers in Michigan. And what else is happening in the Republican primary? We'll talk about that all. And we'll chat with you at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. A lot of news to get to. Bob Menendez, more people calling for him to resign. We've got a major American city that's got businesses on strike due to all of the crime. It's not an auto strike. That's a crime strike that we have going on right now. We'll try and get to all the details. But before we get there, Leo in Front Royal, Virginia is calling in on line 2. Leo, good to have you on the phone, sir. What's on your mind?
Hold it.
Leo.
I'm just showing you here. Can you hold this a second? I'll show you the rate.
Hey, Leo, check, 1, 2. Oh, poor Leo. He puts his phone down. It sounds like he's leading a very productive social life, though. Were they train spotting? What's happening right now? Hey, Leo, last chance, bud.
Second.
Oh, shoot. No Leo. All right, that's all right. We tried. Leo's out there having a grand old day. It's a little chilly out there now. 62 degrees at the moment. I do have to say, I know a lot of people like this time of year. I'm one of them. I love this time of year. I love when it gets a little cooler outside, where you can light a fire with and celebrate it with friends. A little glass of bourbon and a fire. It's a really nice night, I think. Also, it's grass growing season, which is fantastic. We're in this. We're kind of in the. They divide the country up into 3 grass growing regions. The lower portion of the country, warm season grasses. Northern portion are the cool season grasses. This is technically in the transitional zone, but most people use a cool season grass, which means your grass grows in spring and fall when the soil temperatures are just so. Perfect time of year to go out there, aerate the lawn, start putting some new seed down, getting some of that grass coming up before the winter cold comes in. I love this time of year. It's a really big deal. I'm out there looking at my lawn going, I got to take care of that. That's got to get done soon. So it's a great time of year. A total blessing for all of us. Let me get to the news, though. There's a couple things I wanted to share. We've got an entire city where the businesses, some of the businesses are going on strike today, have been on strike today. The city of Oakland, it has been beset by Democrat-produced crime to such an extent that many of the local restaurants and downtown businesses are fed up and they don't know what to do. So they're putting on a big public demonstration today where they are going on strike. The San Francisco Chronicle, with the reporting on this, headlines struggling tremendously what Oakland businesses hope to accomplish with Tuesday strike. Several Oakland businesses are expected to participate in a one-day strike Tuesday. They're doing it today, protesting rising crime in the city and calling on officials to help struggling merchants. The strike is set to start at 10 a.m. with a news conference at a downtown restaurant called Le Cheval that announced it is closing after 38 years due to crime and slow sales post-pandemic, according to a flyer distributed by the local NAACP chapter. The one-day strike comes as city leaders are facing pressure from business owners and residents to address public safety concerns and criticism for missing a grant deadline to receive millions in state funding to help police combat organized retail theft. There's a typo here. To help combat organized retail theft or police organized retail theft. Pick one. You don't get both. Merchants said that they feel the city isn't doing enough to lower crime, which they said is preventing customers from shopping at their businesses. Well, yeah, that's a huge deal. And what happens when a productive small business moves out of a troubled community because they are constantly being ransacked and driven out of business by criminality that is not being stopped by local authorities? It makes the community worse. There are fewer good places to go. It is much more depressing. There are more things that are like chained up. You kind of know the quality of a neighborhood, right? When you start seeing bars on windows, you can't, to try and prevent people from breaking through the glass to get in. And more of that happens. And it's a whole vibe. It's like things are going south. And people need to travel, law-abiding citizens need to travel greater distances just to get the basics. Because the businesses that serve them that were nearby are run out of town. It's a very destructive cycle. And what it takes is having local leaders with the courage to actually confront the crime with aggression. With aggression. Look, I understand why there have been people of good faith who say, we need to take a close look at whether or not we're being too tough on certain categories of criminals and make sure that, everybody's being treated fairly, that you actually receive a punishment that fits the crime. That's fine. But you can't so overcorrect for abuses that you allow all crime to occur without any meaningful consequence whatsoever. What is the lesson that people take away from it, especially our young people? Rudderless young people running around destroying without any consequence for them. We see it right here in Washington, D.C. I mean, we set the tone with allowing people to leap over the barricades to get on the metro. We're not stopping people from getting on the metro who are literally stealing from the taxpayers. Yeah, they just leap, and then a cop, how many videos have you seen? Just cops are standing there, metro employees standing there, nobody does anything about it. What kind of message does that send? What kind of message does it send when you have kids who are carjacking all over our area and certainly cities across the country, and then they face no meaningful consequence for it? A little time in court, a little time with, finger wagging, don't do that again. And they get away with it. To the point that I've seen viral videos now of kids bragging about, I'll be out in no time. They don't even care. They did it for the chuckles. They like it. It's a thrill ride. They posted it to TikTok. Their friends get to see it. They came out ahead. Net positive for them. The rest of us, though, we suffer as a result of that. A society that's falling apart. So in Oakland, the businesses have resorted to straight up striking now. They're saying, this is killing us. We're gonna at least do a public display where we try and get some attention to this. Please help. Please help. They're begging. In Oakland, one of these California cities that is under Democrat control, in a state that is, again, under Democrat control, that has just been going south. And it's been like that for years. It was even before the George Floyd riots and all of that. I mean, how many times have we talked about how expensive it is to get a U-Haul just to drive out of California? A U-Haul is supposed to help you move. It's supposed to be kind of an affordable way to move, right? You pack it yourself. You didn't hire movers. You got a U-Haul. You did it yourself. It is prohibitively expensive for people to move out of the state. There are not, it's a question of supply and demand. There are not enough available U-Hauls to flee the state of California. Does that tell you anything? It should certainly tell you that Gavin Newsom should never be president of the United States. If there's any message here, you see Gavin Newsom is going to do a debate with Ron DeSantis now. They're doing a televised debate, the two of them. The California governor versus the Florida governor. The Florida governor, of course, has the actual case to make. But if you had to choose between which state you would rather live in, what governance you would rather be subjected to, the answer to that is, without question, every day of the week, Ron DeSantis. You should see, if you haven't been down to Florida lately, you should definitely go down at some point and see how happy people are. They're over the moon about their governance there. Oh, look, I'm not making, this is not a point. I'm not making this point as a way to fluff Ron DeSantis' presidential credentials. That's not why I'm saying this. I'm talking about strictly on a state level. He just did a phenomenal job. He did a phenomenal job. People love him down there. Super high marks. Because he got out of their way, he respected their liberty, he fought the cultural battles that they wanted him to fight, meaning he defended them against the cultural battles that the left were waging against him or them. He stays out of their way. Florida has no income tax. He's keeping it that way. It's all fantastic. Meanwhile, Gavin Newsom oversees one of the most thieving states in the country when it comes to taxation. They're taking it is California the most beautiful state? It's one of the most beautiful states we have. It truly is. And Democrats have destroyed it. Can you imagine taking a city like San Francisco? You're handed a gift, gorgeous city, and then covering it in human waste and needles and crime. Imagine doing that. What a betrayal of the people who came before you. And so Gavin Newsom wants a shot at the presidency, obviously. And so now he's doing this debate with Ron DeSantis. We've seen reports that the White House is annoyed at him. Like, hey, knock it off. Stop trying to elevate yourself here. But I happen to think that there's something else afoot. Everyone has their eyes on what Gavin Newsom is up to here. Because quite obviously, the left wants to give Biden the hook. All of the polling data that they've been sharing lately, all of the indicators that Democrats don't want him to have another go. They think he's too old, as if that's the only problem. It's all a curtain raiser for, Joe Biden has to go. Joe Biden can't be in office anymore. There's a piece today in the Washington Times. They're not a left-wing publication. The Washington Times front page today, holding the physical edition in my hands. Rumblings grow over Biden's capability. Subhead, invoking 25th Amendment comes with bad scenarios. They write, concerns about President Biden's age, which intensified after his recent falls on a string of mental misfires, have spurred speculation about worst-case scenarios, including the chance that he will become too ill to do his job. His performance has raised questions about the use of the 25th Amendment, which provides for the transfer of power if a president cannot carry out his duties. Others worry that Vice President Kamala Harris could become a de facto caretaker president as Mr. Biden's abilities decline. Can you imagine? Kamala Harris. She can't find her way out of a sentence. How is she going to be a caretaker president for the United States? Mr. Biden is beset by several health issues. He wears an air mask at night to treat sleep apnea. He was recently treated for a form of skin cancer. He's got mobility issues attributed to arthritis in his back and neuropathy in his feet. The president's also being treated for high cholesterol and atrial fibrillation, which causes an irregular heart rate. Most of the attention, however, is focused on his verbal gaffes. He often stumbles over words or confuses facts, including mixing up the wars in Ukraine and Iraq, which raises questions about his mental acuity. Yeah, big time, you think? Mr. Biden also has suffered from falls, including while on a bike ride in Delaware, on stage at an Air Force Academy graduation ceremony, and while climbing stairs to board Air Force One. Already the nation's oldest president at 80, Mr. Biden would be 82 at the start of his second term if he wins re-election. He would be 86 at the conclusion of a second term. The next oldest commander-in-chief was President Ronald Reagan. You know how old Reagan was when he left office? 77. So Biden is now 80 years old. Reagan left at 77. And when he left, everybody was saying, man, he's so old. He's leaving. He's old. He's lost a step. Look at him. He's old. 77 years old. Biden is 80 now. He's 80 now. And he didn't start looking old throughout. He was, late in his presidency or now in 2023. He's been old the whole time. He was old during the campaign. They locked him in a basement. They put everything on a teleprompter for him just to help him survive his interviews with people like Jimmy Kimmel. The whole thing is crazy. So, yeah, everyone's concerned. So, you can smell it, right? Can you smell it? They're trying to get rid of him. They're trying to figure out a way to navigate through this. Now, some of this may actually be dependent on the Democrat primary calendar, right? They want to get past whatever rules they have in place on the calendar that would suggest that they need an open primary up until a certain point. Maybe that's what they're waiting for. Maybe they just wait for thresholds to pass. And then when they get past that point, they're like, oh my goodness, it's too late. We can't even ask Democrats to vote. We're just going to have to appoint somebody. Sorry, guys. We didn't expect Biden to have to leave, right? But it's so late in the game. We've got to appoint somebody now to be the nominee. We'll let you vote next time. Hey, you Democrat primary voters, don't worry. We'll remember. You can vote next time. But this time, no voting for you. Because we have to save democracy and everything. We'll see. But the only thing I can guarantee you is that the unexpected is going to occur. Right? That's the only guarantee, is that the unexpected will occur. It's one of the amazing things about radio. What I've discovered about radio is in order to succeed, You have to be both over-prepared for what has happened and under-prepared for what happens next. I think that's the lesson I've taken from it. 521.
It's here. Download the new WMAL app and listen anywhere you go, anytime you want.
All right, I've got some news for you. It just keeps on coming. Fox with a report now. Hunter Biden received $250,000 wire originating in Beijing with beneficiary address listed as Joe Biden's home. Huh, how about that? But you see, Vince, there's no evidence of Joe Biden's involvement in the Biden family business. Exclusive, Hunter Biden received wires originating in Beijing for more than $250,000 from Chinese business partners during the summer of 2019. Wires that listed the Delaware home of Joe Biden as the beneficiary address for the funds, Fox News Digital has learned. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer has been investigating the Biden family business dealings and Joe Biden's alleged involvement in those ventures. As a part of the investigation, Comer subpoenaed financial records related to a specific bank account and received records of 2 wires originating from Beijing, China, and linked to BHR Partners. BHR Partners is the joint venture between Hunter's, Rosemont Seneca, and Chinese investment firm Bohai Capital. BHR Partners is a Beijing-backed private equity firm controlled by Bank of China Limited. Hunter Biden sat on the board of directors of BHR Partners. The first wire that was sent to Hunter Biden, dated July 26th of 2019, was for $10,000 from an individual named Ms. Wang Jin. There is a Ms. Wang Jin listed on the website for BHR Partners. It's unclear if the wire came from that Wang Jin. And then they go on. They list out all of these. They are all being sent to the main residence for Joe Biden. Isn't it amazing? What is Bob Menendez thinking of all of this right now? Menendez is like, wait, you busted me for way less money. The Bidens, that's like $20 million at least flowing into the Biden family coffers, money overflowing in the Biden family for corrupt business deals. And you're going after me for $500,000 in gold bars and cash in my pockets? This seems unfair. I'm looking forward to that chapter of this saga where Bob Menendez is finally so angry at everybody in his own party, he comes out guns blazing against Joe Biden. We'll see if Biden's even president at that point. 529.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Good afternoon to you. 535 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. You can join us today at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Let's take a phone call. We've got Ray calling in on I-66, line 4. Ray, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
How do you do, Mr. Coglianese? I've called you before. Great show as always.
Thank you.
I just had one. You're very welcome. Thank you. I just had one little comment. I think that the trouble the Democrats have is what to do about Vice President Harris. And
how do you solve a problem like Kamala?
How do you?
Yeah.
The problem, I think, is I think it could be solved for them in this way. If they could somehow get Governor Newsome to be on the ballot, or if they could somehow show that he's popular, he becomes the presidential nominee. And the Constitution says that the vice president and president may not both be from the same state. So that way she'd just have to not be on the ballot. And that way it wouldn't be because of her. It's just because that's what the Constitution says.
Right.
And isn't that sad?
No, this is an interesting concept. There's 2 parts of it that I want to address. One, I don't think it fundamentally matters. If they were going to try and slot him in as president and leave Kamala as vice president, the claims of racism would still be loud inside the Democrat Party. They'd be like, well, it's Kamala's turn. It's her turn. So regardless of that arrangement, the idea that they could use, they're both from the same state, and the Constitution prohibits that as a way to justify putting Gavin Newsom in there and giving Kamala Harris the hook. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Ray, is predicated on a misconception that many people do have about the Constitution. Now I'm going to tread here into waters that I'm pretty sure I'm right about, but Mark Levin could give you a better assessment. But according to Article 2 of the Constitution, the restraint you're talking about is on the electors, not the candidates. In other words, since they're both running from California, the electors in California can't vote for them. But every other elector in the country is good. They're good to go. Because it says here in the article. Say again?
Yeah, go ahead. No, please.
In Article 2, it says each state shall appoint in such manner as the legislature thereof may direct a number of electors equal to the whole number of senators and representatives to which the state may be entitled in the Congress. But no senator or representative or person holding an office of trust or profit under the United States shall be appointed an elector. They say the electors shall meet in their respective states and vote by ballot for 2 persons, of whom one at least shall not be an inhabitant of the same state with themselves. So that is a restraint that's placed on the electors, not on the candidates themselves. And so here's why the Democrats would have a problem. California is a ton of electoral votes. It's a ton. So that it makes the point that you're making, but ultimately 2 people from the same state would not be prevented from running as a presidential ticket.
Very well. You've opened my eyes to a provision in the Constitution that I hadn't seen before. Another reason for thanking you.
Thanks, Ray. I appreciate the call. All right, hey, let's get to our guest. We've got a guy calling in, a gentleman from the Republican National Committee right now. Tommy Pigott is the current RNC Director of Strategic Communications, and he joins us on the phone. Tommy, thanks for doing this. Good to have you with us today.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
So I want to first get your reaction to the fact that Joe Biden went to Michigan today. He only announced it after Donald Trump had announced that he would be visiting the auto workers in Michigan. And he was there for exactly 12 minutes on the picket line, and he spoke for exactly 87 seconds to the auto workers. What do you think the message of that is?
I think the message is that's how much he actually cares about these workers. He cares about these workers enough to just give them 12 minutes of his time. After he's been pushing EV mandates and inflationary policies that have been fueling the strike, he's been pushing those for 2.5 years. So it just shows his priorities aren't with workers, aren't with making sure the automotive industry is thriving. It's with these radical environmentalists that are pushing this EV comply or die mandate system that is really just enriching communist China.
Yeah.
But I think it shows his priorities are just as warped as ever.
Also, the auto workers are asking for something like a 40% raise, which to most people sounds like a big number. But the reality here is that 20% of it is just to make up for the money that these people have lost in inflation since Joe Biden's been president. I mean, we all sort of need at least a 20% raise at this point.
Well, that's just showing the destruction of Biden's policies, the fact that that's really what we need in order to keep up with inflation, really decades high in this inflation, 17.4% increase in prices since Biden took office. It really just shows how destructive his policies are and why we need this change of pace, why his solution that he's just going to try to regulate the entire economy towards this radical environmentalist standard that's really just helping communist China and hurting the environment isn't a solution to the fact that he's spending all this money hurting workers, raising prices. What we need to be doing instead is empowering American businesses, reining in that spending, not doubling down on these radical policies that are just increasing prices even more.
What is, in your view, what's the Biden campaign going to look like? Certainly the RNC must be spending a lot of time thinking about this. How do we counter-program the Biden campaign? Are we going to see him out on the road at all or what?
Well, I think based off of this, we're not really going to. I mean, he is going to California for a bunch of fundraisers, again, showing his priority is with these fundraisers, these Hollywood liberals as opposed to the UAW workers.
Yeah.
That, again, shows where his priorities lie. But I think, honestly, his campaign is spending most of their time making sure he doesn't trip. There was an Axios story out today that shows he's not using the normal staircase on Air Force One. He's using a smaller staircase because his campaign is petrified that he's going to fall down the stairs. I mean, that's the type of campaign we're dealing with, where their priorities are trying to make sure he doesn't fall down the stairs. If that's really what they're worried about, it just shows that he really should not be elected to a second term. And all of the concerns Americans have about his capacity to be president are very well founded.
So he's going off to a Hollywood fundraiser. I guess we may get an accounting of how long he's going to be spending in his remarks. Just some free advice. You may have already thought of this, but the RNC should probably put out a comparison of he spent 87 seconds speaking to auto workers and an hour speaking to Hollywood. I imagine that we'll probably have that in the next 24 hours.
Yeah, I mean, our RNC research team is already on top of that. They're tracking basically everything Biden does. That's a great idea. I'll be sure. I'm sure they're on top of it, but I'll make sure that they have that.
Okay, good.
In addition. I
appreciate that. Okay, so there's a Republican debate tomorrow night, and of course we get the same strange dynamic that we had last time. Donald Trump will not be participating in it. What should we expect out of this?
Well, I think the first thing that I think voters can expect is a contrast between the failed policies of California, which is really a failed Democrat experiment on issue after issue after issue, versus a Republican vision for the country. I mean, Gavin Newsom is going out there acting like California is this haven of prosperity, when in reality, so many people are leaving California, they're running out of U-Haul trucks.
Yes.
I mean, that is the disaster of California. So I think this debate is a perfect opportunity for Republican candidates to share that message, share the record of success they have around the country. And I think that's heightened by the fact that it is in California and really a contrast to the failed Democrat policies there.
You made me think. You mentioned California and the failures of Gavin Newsom. Gavin is set to do a debate of his own against Ron DeSantis on Sean Hannity's Fox program coming up soon. That was just announced this week. There's a lot of we've seen reports of some nervousness among Democrats about what Gavin Newsom is up to, that he's positioning himself to run for president perhaps this cycle. At the RNC, are you prepared for other candidates should one emerge all of a sudden? Do you have Oppo files prepared on Gavin Newsom and company?
We're prepared to really take whatever the Democrats throw at us. I mean, our focus right now is on Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, just because really the DNC is doing everything in their power, even changing their primary calendar. I mean, we were talking about the UAW. The Michigan legislature is set to adjourn early so that Joe Biden can get his preferred primary date. So we're focused on Joe Biden. We're making sure that we're really highlighting his failed record, but we'll be ready to really take whatever Democrats throw at us. Yeah,
because you have no idea what's going to happen here with these Democrats. They're very nervous about him. All of this polling lately, it certainly points in the direction that Americans would like to definitely go back to the Trump administration compared to what they're dealing with now. Donald Trump's numbers have definitely gone up from the time of the 2020 election. When the RNC goes through those numbers, do you find reasons for optimism here politically? Are you nervous about that polling, and how are you processing it? Because we know that there are Republicans out there who see this and they think they're just trying to get me to settle down and think that it's a sure thing that a Republican's getting elected next cycle.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head there. That I think there's reason for optimism that we can win these elections, that if we put in the work, we're set for a great election year. But that's the key phrase there, putting in the work. We're already pedal to the metal. Even a state like California launching Bank Your Vote initiatives across the state, which is our voting early initiative. Everyone should go to bankyourvote.com and take that pledge. But only if we put in the work do we really have that strong chance. I think the polling does show optimism. I mean, we have real concerns about Biden's capacity to be president, real concerns about his economic policy, his foreign policy, his border policy. I think really what it shows us is that the messaging is getting through to the American people, despite the media's attempts to really defend Joe Biden. We have to keep pedal to the metal, though, and we have to put in the work.
I want to ask you in a moment about putting in the work on election security, because I know that the RNC has had some focus on that. I want to get an update from you. But first on the debates broadly. My understanding of the presidential debates, and we'll see how long they continue. Right now, Trump keeps adding to his lead. Was that they would involve conservative media, that there'd be conservative questioners putting these questions forward. Now, Fox and Fox Business had the first two debates, but the third debate is going to NBC, it was reported. Does the RNC still have a plan to include conservative questioners among the moderators for these debates?
We're incredibly, we're definitely prioritizing. It's a huge priority for us to make sure that these debates are fair, that we're not going to have a situation where liberal moderators ask bad faith questions in a way that really puts candidates in a spot that really is just a way to help Democrats. We're making sure these debates are fair. Everything's going to be done in a transparent process. That's a major priority for us.
Yeah.
But that is something we're definitely focused on, to make sure that these candidates serve voters, give voters information, don't serve as a Democrat platform to ask questions that are really made in bad faith, that are trying to trap candidates into positions that they don't have and they don't take. So we're really making it and trying to make sure that these debates are fair, transparent, and really help Republican voters make that decision.
Right, because the critical thing is that the conversation's actually relevant to Republican voters. When we talked to David Bossie, who's been an important part of these decisions about a year ago, if I remember correctly, and he had indicated at the time that perhaps conservative radio hosts in particular could be involved in asking these questions. But so for now, what you're telling me, Tommy, is the plan is to keep it fair, but no indication whether or not conservative questioners will be up there.
That's definitely something that's a priority. I can't really speak to specifics. Ultimately, though, what we want to do is make sure it really serves Republican voters, helps them make that decision, but also serves the biggest platform possible to get that vision out there and make sure as many voters as possible see it. So we start that connection now, that communication now, with as many voters as possible across the country. So whoever the Republican nominee is, they're in the best position possible to win in 2024.
Tommy Pigott, tell me about election security and the RNC's focus on it. What does that look like, and what kind of gains have you made?
Well, it's kind of taking two main parts here, or at least two main updates to really share. First is the Bank Your Vote initiative, as I mentioned before. Part of that is a Protect Your Vote initiative. We had an unprecedented Protect Your Vote effort in 2022. We're continuing that in 2024. So if people go to bankyourvote.com, sign up. That'll also plug them into what we're doing on Protect Your Vote across the country, poll observers, poll watchers. That's something we're continuing. But really the second part of that is fighting bad laws and making sure that we're trying to fight in the courts against Democrat attempts to undermine election integrity. We just sued New York State along with Republican partners after New York State and New York Democrats really instituted a program to try to undermine election integrity around mail-in ballots. We sued the state with Republican partners. We're also really keeping an eye on what's going on in Pennsylvania in terms of automatic voter registration, making sure that the Democrat governor really made this proclamation without very many details. So we're keeping an eye on that. We're ready to go. So that's really where we're focused. We're going to continue those efforts up, lawsuits around the country, but then also once the rules are set, making sure we have those poll observers, poll watchers that are really ensuring these elections are fair and transparent. And
in states where like in California, you mentioned earlier, where ballot harvesting is legalized, that is, a political operative can handle ballots on behalf of voters. It's a bad idea, but so long as it exists in the state, will the RNC be engaging in it?
We're going to be engaging in ballot harvesting where legal, and that really does change based off of the state and what that looks like. But we are going to be not tying one hand behind our back. We're going to be fighting with both hands in front of us, playing by the rules that are set. That's what we're going to be doing. And we're going to be making sure that Republicans have all the tools necessary that they need where they can feel comfortable that when they bank their vote early, that their vote will be counted.
Tommy Pigott over at the Republican National Committee. Thank you for your time today, sir. Nice to talk to you.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir. 5:49 now.
Mark Levin, weekdays 6 till 9 p.m.
On News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
You know, so many things to share with you. I'm going to try later this week. We'll dig in a little bit more on an Iranian influence operation that apparently has been very successful inside of the Biden White House. In case you're wondering, Tehran and the Iranian media have been getting scoops on what is happening inside of the White House, and everybody's been puzzled. How is that happening? And now we're starting to get the answer. It turns out that we've got government officials who may very well seem to be compromised by the Iranians, just to add to the pile of scandals that we have to deal with now as a country. Just remarkable. But that's a big story. We'll try and get some more details on that and deliver it to you this week. Local story for you. There's a Native American group that is suing the Washington Commanders for defamation because an employee claimed that this Native American group isn't real. This is the group is called the Native American Guardians Association, NAGA. And they have been asking the Commanders to go back to Redskins. They like Redskins. They really wish the team would change back now that it's under new ownership. And so now the suit, they're suing owner Josh Harris, sales representative Matthew Lau, and the National Congress of American Indians, another Native American group, who they say have all collectively worked to disparage their group, the Native American Guardians Association. The suit is demanding $1.6 million in damages following messages from that guy Matthew Laux claiming that the group is fake, according to the Examiner. NAGA contends that the team has effectively challenged the Native American status of its group members, saying the retort, quote, was attacking the very identity of NAGA members. So these guys, a bunch of Native Americans get together and they say, hey, can you change it back to Redskins? And then somebody says, they're not even a real Native American group. Now they're suing. They would like $1.6 million in damages. They say that's defamatory to say that I'm not actually Native American. So we'll give you an update if that actually moves anywhere. Also, one other local story for you. The National Zoo is about to get rid of the big, fat, lazy Chinese pandas that are in the zoo. I know, they're very popular. Everybody loves the pandas. Fox 5 reports, so long, farewell. Secure your ticket to Pandapalooza at the Smithsonian National Zoo. They say Pandapalooza has arrived. It's running through October 1st. It's a final farewell to the 3 pandas currently living at the zoo, Tian, Xiao Qi, and Mei Zhang, before they return home to China. Remember, the pandas are on loan to us from China. And the truth is they're communists, these pandas. They're infiltrators. They have been propagandizing us with how great China is. Oh, look, they have pandas. They're adorable. Enough. Send them back. And those pandas can't even stay alive if it wasn't for us. How are they going to fare in China? We'll never get an update on that, ever. But send them back. Do it immediately. That's all I have to say about that. I'm grumpy about the pandas. The great one, Mark Levin. It was so nice to talk to him today on my program. Now you can hear from him on his program up next on WMAL.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
Making sense of the news.